It's that time of the year again, the time where business leaders everywhere want to communicate their strategy to their teams. Now, having spent a quarter century helping executives the world over on this, I want to share with you the tips and tricks we give to ensure that they drive their teams to action. So, stick around. Business leaders are obsessed with strategy, and rightly so. A well-communicated strategy can galvanize a team around a common path to victory. Unfortunately, the problem is that most of these are poorly communicated. Well, to quote my good friend Braveheart.
Well, that's something we shall have to remedy, isn't it?
Today, I want to share with you 3 very important points you need to do to ensure that your strategy presentation gets the desired results. Now, the first thing you have to do is you have to give them a reason to care. Right? You have to sell the itch before you provide the scratch. What's important here is that you make them care about this specific strategy. What do I mean by this? Well, let's say, for example, that you have a strategy that you wanted to enter new markets. You first have to convince your audience that you're not strong enough in different markets, and then provide them with this strategy as a way to remedy that.
Well, that's something we shall have to...
No. Too much, Mel. Too much. What's critical is that by the time you then get to revealing the elements of the strategy, they feel like it's something that they would have suggested because they feel that there's a problem. So you sell the problem in the beginning and then you provide the solution. You show them the dragon and then you give them the weapon. Now, the reason this is important is that it does need to become their strategy. And that's what the next point is about. You need to speak in the language of the citizens, not in the language of the government. You can't say the same thing in the conference room that you would have said in the boardroom. Let me explain. I work with a lot of executives and we'll go to them and they'll say, oh, I want to deliver my strategy to the business. And my first question is always, why? And they say, well, because it's the strategy of the business. And I say, yeah, but it's very, very top level. I said, yeah, but they've got to understand what we're doing. They need to understand. And I say, why? And they say, well, because it's the company they work for. And then I ask them, are you impacted by, what our government does? And they say, yes. And then I ask them, well, what are the last 3 bills passed by our government? And then they give me a blank stare. But if I ask them, hey, on the way home, which traffic lights are least likely to be working or most likely to be broken? Every single executive knows which one. Why? Because we care more about what impacts us as citizens and we don't worry that much about government level things. What's big in your world isn't big in their world. So what do you want to do? Well, if you want to be successful, you don't have to bring them to your world. You have to go to theirs. Look, you have to understand that the company doing $500 million is not exciting to the people in the business for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, it's not their money. Reason number 2, that number is too big for them to comprehend. They suffer from psychophysical numbing. Psychophysical numbing is where numbers lose value once they reach a certain size.
769, 810.
Mr. Beast, like the world's most subscribed YouTuber. I heard an interview with him recently on Lex Fridman. It was crazy because, Jimmy is famous for giving away lots of money. And what he does is he realized that giving away $10,000 versus giving away $100,000, well, there was a big difference there. People were more likely to watch the video where he gave away $100,000. But when he gave away $100,000 versus $1 million, they didn't change that much. Why not? Well, it turns out to most people, $10,000 is a medium amount of money. $100,000 is a lot of money. And $1 million, it's also just a lot of money. Even though the one is the difference between $90,000 and the other is the difference between $900,000, it didn't feel that much bigger to people. Because for them, as the numbers got further away, they just kind of blurred into being something the same. That's why people are terrible at understanding the difference between $1 million and $1 billion.
$1 million. Sorry.
Right, and if you want to know more about that, definitely check out my book, Here Be Dragons, where I talk about human scale numbers. And in fact, while I'm on the topic of definitely checking out, I'm busy preparing a video on 10 things that Mr. Beast can teach you about delivering a great presentation. It's going to be epic, so if you do want to, definitely hit subscribe and stick around to be notified of that one. So what do we do with that? Because we do want to share those numbers. Well, a great way to close the distance with them is to use the words to put that in perspective. Don't know why I did that with my hands. So let me say, for example, I was to say to you that DHL delivers to 220 countries around the world. Well, if I said that to you, I'd challenge you to remember that number in a week. However, if I said to you, Well, to put that in perspective, DHL delivers to more countries than Coca-Cola. Well, then I challenge you to forget that in a year. When we draw close to something, we bring a big number close to something that people understand, that way they're more likely to remember it. So you have to make the numbers real for them. Remember, the language of the citizens beats the language of the government. Next, you want to give them a reason to believe. Now, in the beginning, you got them to understand the problem that you were trying to solve. Now what you have to do is explain to them the process you went through to come to the solution. The idea is very, very simple. By the time you finish, the strategy should feel like a foregone conclusion. Now, it's important that you don't go into too much detail here. Think Goldilocks, right? Just give them just enough information. It may feel like you're just dotting I's and crossing T's, but it's very, very important because again, if you can get them to feel like the strategy you came up with is a strategy they would have come up with, well then you're off to the races. All right, so now we're on to an extremely contentious part, but very important part of this video. And that is, and it seems ironic in a video on delivering your strategy, is this. Don't deliver your strategy at all. Wait, what? Calm down, let me explain. I don't think you need to deliver all the details of your strategy in the conference room. I think what you need to deliver is your strategic destination, your victory condition. Now, I did a video on this a while ago while in Washington, DC, and if you want to see some detail on that, we'll definitely link. But what is important is that you basically understand that the strategy are the GPS directions that you're giving to your team. But the strategic destination, well, that's the destination, right? That's where they need to be at this specific time. Now, why is this important? I'll tell you why. Because by communicating the GPS directions, the victory condition to your people, you allow two important things to emerge. The first is autonomy, and the second is agility, right? You want your people to own the problem and to make it feel like the company's struggle is their struggle as well, that the company's victory is their victory. Of course, we all remember the famous story at NASA about the person sweeping the floor.
One of my favorite stories is when JFK went to go visit the NASA Space Center and he saw a janitor holding a broom and he asked him what he was doing, and the janitor replied, "Mr. President, I'm helping put a man on the moon." Purpose is that feeling that you are a part of something bigger than yourself.
Okay, so the victory condition is the strategic destination that your business needs to get to. Your specific strategy, well, that's the path to victory. Now, they may change. Think about this. If you had written your strategy 6 months ago, it would not have allowed for OpenAI or GPT-3, heck, I can't keep up. It would not have allowed for fancy AI bots to change the way of the world we're working in. However, if you had communicated a strategic destination, well, it absolutely would have. Because all that would have happened is your people would have reached the point where this is there. They would have asked themselves, will this help us get closer or further to our victory condition? If the answer is closer, they would have used it and moved on. You want to allow for autonomy and agility in your strategy. And that's why you deliver the victory condition, the strategic destination, more than just the strategy. This permission to act is the final and most important part of the delivery of your strategic message. You see, you need to remember that a presentation is never about just sharing information. It's about driving humans to action. A presentation is to deliver a message, to evoke an emotion, to achieve a desired result. You deliver the information to them that creates emotion inside them, that gets them to act. You need to call your people to action. So many presentations fail at this because at the end, people feel hamstrung. Let me explain how I would maybe do that. So, now you know where we need to be, why we need to be there, and when we got to get there by. All that's left is the how. And that is the job of every single person in this room here today. Because every person in this room can help us get there. I need you to think today of one thing that you can do to help this company make it happen. I need you to share that idea with your manager. And more importantly, I need you to go out there and turn it into an action. We will not get to where we need to go based on the strategy of a handful of executives, but in the tactics of 100 individuals. A good step here is to remind them what's at stake. A brief reprise of the reason to care. Then as you head towards the end of your presentation, build up. Remember that while the engine of your strategy may well be intellectual, the fuel that drives that engine is emotional. You want to appeal to the emotions of the people in the room. Build them up and make sure that you leave them in a better place than you found them, excited and charged for the journey ahead. And that, my friends, is where I leave you today. You have the tools you need to land this message, as only you can. If you need help, just head over to ineedmissinglink.com and we'll be there to help you work on that strategy and, of course, communicate it. But otherwise, just go out there and lead loud.